Alright, so here's the thing, not every electric car out there has to compete with Tesla. And while it may make a lot of us comfortable, not all of them have to top 300 miles of range. Or do they? What's going on? My name is Omar and this is the Mercedes-Benz EQB. Alright, so let's kick it off with the pricing details so you know what you're working with as we go along on this tour. This is the most affordable electric car that you can get from Mercedes-Benz, with prices starting at $54,500 for the EQB 300 and $58,550 for the EQB 350. So don't think of this as a competitor to the Tesla Model Y. This is more of a competitor to the Audi Q4 e-tron, the Volvo XC40 Recharge, and the C40 Recharge. Of course, the EQB is slightly bigger than those. Now, no matter which EQB trim you go for, both of them come standard with all-wheel drive. The EQB 300 makes 225 horsepower and 288 pound-feet of torque. It will give you the most range at 243 miles on a full charge, and it will do 0 to 60 in 7 seconds flat. The EQB 350, on the other hand, is the faster of the two EQBs, making a total of 288 horsepower and 384 pound-feet of torque. It'll do 0 to 60 in 6 seconds flat, however, the range drops to 227 miles on a full charge. That said, those figures are pretty much on par with the vehicles that the EQB competes with. Now, I do want to point out that the gasoline version of the EQB, the GLB 250, is able to hit north of 400 miles on a full tank of gas. So I feel like you would really have to want to go electric if you're going to pick the EQB over the GLB. That said, let's talk about charging for the EQB. No matter which one you go for, going from 10 to 100% from a 9.6 kilowatt setup will take you right under 8 hours. And if you go to a DC fast charging station and manage to get 100 kilowatts, you can go from 10 to 80% in 32 minutes. Not the best really, but not the worst. All right, so now that we've got the specs out of the way, let's hop inside and check out this cabin. In my opinion, this is super nice and super stylish. I think it's definitely a better interior than the Audi Q4 e-tron and the Volvo XC40 and C40. We'll talk about the quality and comfort in a few seconds, but let's start off with the tech. You've got two 10.25-inch touchscreen displays making up the whole MBUX infotainment that we're all pretty familiar with now. It's definitely one of my personal favorite infotainment systems in the luxury segment because of the functionality and the easy-to-use nature of it. I also love the fact that you can control it in multiple ways. You can control it by touching the screen, you can control it by touching this touchpad right down here, or you can keep your hands on the steering wheel and control it right from here. Of course, you can also use your voice and simply say, "Hey Mercedes." That said, the EQB comes standard with all the tech that you would expect in an infotainment system, including Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. You also have a native navigation system. And since this is an electric Benz, you also have some EQ pages here that will help you set up your charging and learn more about where your energy is going. The second screen, of course, is your digital gauge cluster display, which also measures 10.25 inches, and it's absolutely gorgeous. In my opinion, Mercedes-Benz has done the best digital gauge cluster displays out there of any luxury brand. It's so smooth, so informative, and it looks just awesome. Now, when it comes to driver assist tech in the EQB, it comes pretty well equipped. However, advanced active tech like lane keep assist, blind spot monitoring, speed limit assist, and more is extra. In fact, if you want a 360 surround view camera, a heads-up display, those are optional as a part of a higher trim. Alright, moving on, let's talk about comfort, convenience, and quality. The interior is everything that you would expect from Mercedes-Benz. In fact, I actually think it's a little bit better than other Mercedes-Benz models. The build quality in here is definitely top-notch. Everything feels solid and really well put together. As for comfort, these seats are pretty comfortable. Both of the front seats are power adjustable, so that's pretty nice. However, check this out. You don't get heated seats as standard. If you want heated or ventilated front seats on the EQB, those are optional no matter which trim you go for. Not sure why. I expected them to be standard, at least on the higher trims. Nonetheless, you do get a standard panoramic roof, so that's a nice touch. Also, a heated steering wheel is optional for an extra $250. However, if you go for the higher trims of the EQB, you can get things like massaging front seats, a fragrance system, and a really solid Burmester sound system. Now, space-wise, since the EQB and GLB are boxy, the interior room is very impressive. Hop in the second row of the EQB and you're working with a total of 38.1 inches of legroom back here. I'm about 6 foot tall. That is my seating position. As you can see, I still have a good amount of room, and you can also slide this second row forward and back to get some more legroom if you need it. But yeah, while the second row seats are spacious and comfortable, you don't have any other comfort or amenities back here like heated seats or side manual shades and peasant blockers. That said, you can add on a third row in the EQB for an extra $1,250 that will give you an extra 2 seats in the back for a total of 7. All right, let's take a quick look at the exterior design. Now, I'm a fan of the GLB's boxy look, so I think the EQB also looks pretty awesome. A lot of people out there don't like the boxy design, but I really appreciate it. It's a quirky and funky looking SUV, but at the same time, it still manages to look like an elegant Mercedes-Benz. The reason it's so boxy and wide is because it helps Mercedes-Benz maximize the interior space, which I think is pretty awesome because you don't actually see that much interior room in this segment. Now, of course, up front, you don't have a grille since this is an electric vehicle and there's no engine to be cooled. But yeah, I think the front end looks pretty stylish. You have LED headlamps and LED daytime running lights as standard. I like the LED light bar that's running across the top of the grille right here. Wheel game wise, you're working with 19-inch wheels across the board, and then swing around the back and you have a very stylish rear end that's highlighted by this giant LED taillight that runs the full width of the EQB. I really like the rear end presence of the EQB. I think it looks awesome. That said, yeah, I think the EQB is definitely one of the better looking EVs out there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you think this looks better than the Q4 and the Volvo XC40 and C40? In fact, do you think this looks better than the Tesla Model Y? Let me know. All right, so before we take the EQB for a spin, let me point out a few important daily ownership highlights that I'll have to show all of you. You have a total of 4 cup holders, 2 in the front right there for the front passengers, and then you have 2 in the back right here in the center armrest. Here are the keys to the e-quarterback, really nice, like them a lot. Door close down from the outside. And the inside, that's solid. Charging game wise in the front, you have a USB-C port right there. A wireless charger is optional. You've also got a USB-C port in the center armrest right there. Those sitting in the back get 2 USB-C ports and a household outlet. And let's do an indicator and horn sound test. Indicator first. That nice Mercedes-Benz indicator. Now for the horn sound. Oh, that's loud. Solid, for sure. All right, so let's take the EQB for a drive. Now, every time we see an electric car with less than 300 miles of range, we completely lose it and write it off right away. And believe me, I get it. With range anxiety and seeing the battery level drop below 50%, that can give us heart palpitations. It's totally understandable. But there are millions of gasoline-powered cars out there on the road that get between 200 to 250 miles of range. Of course, I understand that you're not spending a few hours fueling them up, whereas electric cars can take a little while. But the flip side of that argument is that most EV owners plug in their cars overnight and magically have full range the next day. That's like you having a full tank of gas every single day when you wake up. So yeah, while the EQB may not be for everyone out there, I feel like for somebody who's just trying to get their feet wet with electric vehicles may actually enjoy this. That said, how does the EQB drive? Well, to be honest, it's very much like the GLB. It's a great entry-level SUV that is a pretty comfortable daily driver. Now, it may not be the smoothest Mercedes-Benz SUV that you can buy, but at this price tag, it's pretty impressive for what it is. And I gotta say, Mercedes-Benz's electric vehicles are some of the few out there that hold on to the range quite a bit. I recently tested the Audi e-tron SUV, and that thing ran through its range quicker than anything. Now, I'm not sure how most automakers or the EPA figure out max range for an EV, but if you end up using any media or climate controls, your range will deplete faster than what it says on the gauge cluster. However, that wasn't the case with the EQB here or the EQS that I've tested before. I picked this up with a total of 205 miles of range, and it's actually been pretty realistic to the actual miles that I've driven, and I can't say that for every EV out there. But yeah, in terms of handling, in terms of driving this around town, this is a great entry-level EV. Again, the one that I'm testing here will do 0 to 60 in 6 seconds flat, which is pretty respectable for a boxy luxury SUV like this one. If you go for the EQB 300, that will do 60 in 7 seconds. The only real big drawback that I have with this is the charging time. It isn't as quick to charge as the Kia EV6 or the Hyundai Ioniq 5. That said, if you're in the market for this B SUV from Mercedes-Benz, would you really pick the EQB over the GLB? I think the only people that will answer yes to that question are the ones that really want to try going electric, or the ones that are ready for the electric world but will only go for a Mercedes-Benz badge. Now, would I pick this over the Audi Q4 e-tron or the Volvo XC40 and C40 Recharge? Yes, I personally would. The EQB is the tiny electric SUV from Mercedes-Benz, but this feels like a much bigger vehicle than those that I just mentioned. Not only that, it's more versatile and feels better built. If you're in the market for an entry-level electric luxury SUV, I definitely recommend taking the EQB for a test drive. Either way, thanks for watching. Make sure you hit like, make sure you hit subscribe. Make sure you follow me on Instagram and on TikTok. My handle is @OmarDrives. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take care. Peace. By the way, I don't know why I didn't mention this earlier. You have 4 drive modes to pick from, including individual, sport, comfort, and eco. Pop it in sport, and it takes off. 0 to 60 in 6 seconds takes off, but Still gives you that electric car torque jolt, but not Tesla Model Y exciting. Oh, and put it in eco and it will limit your top speed. So you just like really slow down. Yeah, saving some range. I'm just saving some range in eco mode.